Welcome to The Freedom Experience, the podcast for business owners and CEOs who feel stuck, frustrated, or anxious about their company's growth. I'm your host, John Moncrief, and each week I'll bring you insights from successful entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and expert coaches who've navigated the challenges of scaling a business. In each episode, we'll dive into their proven strategies, their systems, and their personal stories, sharing the hard-earned lessons that help them to break through barriers and build businesses of true value. If you're feeling like time's running out and you haven't created the impact or the freedom that you envisioned when you started your business, this podcast is your roadmap to intentional, purpose-driven growth. Join me and let's unlock the potential of your business together. Hey, welcome to this week's edition of The Freedom Experience. It's part 2 of a special Freedom Experience year-end review. I'm your host, John Moncrief, and this week we're going to take another look back at some of the conversations I've had over the past year that we have pulled out common themes. So in last week's episode, we took 3 big themes: the CEO doom loop, aligning with your overall purpose, and building a strong leadership team. And this week, I want to look at another 3 key things. These are common things that came out of my discussions with guests. And my guests come from all different kind of range of industries, from different geographies, and from different experiences. But one of the things that a lot of them have got in common is that they've built and sold businesses for substantial amounts of money. Others are coaches, others are thought leaders. But there were 3 other big things that came out. And those 3 things: people, focus, and long-term thinking. The reason for doing these 2 roundup podcasts is as you go into the new year, as you're thinking about your strategy for the new year, how you're going to execute, these are the common themes that came out of the discussions I had. And I think they're really important to setting you up for success this year. So if you haven't listened to the episode from last week, go back. It's all about escaping the CEO doom loop, that feeling where you're caught up in the weeds, where you're parachuting in as the CEO to try and fix everything. And you've got those thoughts that are going through your head like, I might as well just do this myself. And how you could get caught up in this and ultimately it ends up kind of going very badly for the business. So how you escape that CEO doom loop, how to align your purpose with what you're doing right now in your business, and the importance of building a really strong leadership team and how that's going to help you going forward. So let's dive into the 3 for this week, which are going to be all about people, about focus, and about long-term thinking. Okay, so the first big theme I want to tackle is around people. This came up just about every single conversation I had with guests on the show, and it's come up at a number of different conferences and events that I've been at over the past year or 2. This idea of getting the right people in the right seats is critical. If you want to be successful this year, you need to take the time and look at the people that you've got in your business and make sure you got the right people. If you think about your favorite sports team and you imagine yourself in the captain of that sports team out there on the playing field or in the playing arena, or wherever it is, and you don't have the right people in the right kind of positions or roles, you're going to spend your time running around trying to support everybody in the field. So you're going from one person to another person, trying to make sure that you're winning the game, playing their roles, parachuting in as the CEO to get done what needs to be done, and not actually focusing on where the business is going and winning the game. And if you're trying to support everybody else on the field, the question is, are you going to win the game? And the answer is no, you haven't got a chance. So the same way a sports team that has B and C players isn't going to win the league, isn't going to win the championship, you need to make sure in this game of business that you have the top performing team. And as we move forward and we think about kind of finding the right people, it's more than to attract those people, going to be more than just a paycheck. In the conversations I had with Zach Mercurio, people are, or the great resignation was driven by the fact that people want to be heard. They want to feel valued. They want to feel cared about more in the workplace. And they are looking for something different in the workplace. So the next 2 years are going to be really interesting, where people aren't just looking simply for a paycheck. Obviously, that's still important. But there are other things that are equally important, like where this business is going. What's the problem we're trying to solve in the world? What's the mission that this business is on? What's the purpose that it exists? How do I play a role in supporting that purpose? Flexible work environment, hybrid work environment. Employees are looking for more than just kind of work-life balance. They are wanting a place where they feel like they're contributing more to the world. And I think that might sound fluffy, but it's really important. There's a competitive advantage in there in trying to get this people side of your business right. So as you're going into the new year, you're thinking about, how do I create an environment for my employees where they feel like they're part of something bigger and they can thrive? And Paul Spiegelman, the episode that I did with him was episode number 27, I think. And he talked about something called the circle of growth. At the time, he was running CEO and founder of Beryl Health, and he kind of talked about the story of the circle of growth that they'd come up with. And I think it was his CFO that actually came up with it. And basically the way it goes is that the business is very focused on creating an environment where employees can thrive. So the core focus is around creating a great environment for employees. By doing that, you're ultimately creating more loyalty and you're driving customer retention. So create a great environment for your employees. Find the best employees. Attract the right kind of employees. Get them into the right seats, into the right roles. And in doing that and giving them the tools they need, you're creating more customer loyalty and you're driving retention. That also gives you the ability to have more profitable growth, to have premium pricing. And in Paul's case, he talked about the fact that they were charging 20 to 30%, or they had profit margins of 20 to 30%, which was significantly surpassing the industry standard of 5 to 10%. So he attributed this remarkable profitability to the circle of growth, and talking about how by focusing on employees and creating a fantastic employee experience, that drove customer retention, customer loyalty, which in turn drove profitability and premium pricing. And then they used that margin to reinvest and to improve the resources that employees have. And you cut the circle of growth. So that goes back into the employee focus. So employee focus, customer loyalty, profitable growth, reinvest, and the circle goes round. As you go into the new year, think about how you're going to be focusing more on employees, how you're going to be focusing on creating an environment where employees feel valued, where they feel cared about. And then from there, how do you take the disruptors out of the environment to just kind of keep improving that environment? And in episode 21 with Tom Walters, he talked about discretionary thoughts. So all of us have these discretionary thoughts, 60,000 daily thoughts that we have. And what he found through research was that only 4% of those 60,000 discretionary thoughts are directed toward work. So your employees come to work, they have 60,000 odd thoughts a day. 4% of that is directed to the work that they're doing. And Tom wondered if he could double this number, so go from 4% to 8%, and how that might significantly improve the outcomes in at Tasty Catering. And he shared a simple example of how he did this. One of the employees in their sales function, I believe she was a sales manager in the sales function, basically the squeaky door kept opening and closing. And what she was doing was counting the number of times that the door opened and closed every single day. And the whole sales team was having a discussion about the irritation that this door was to them. So her discretionary thoughts were more about the door and the conversations around the door than focusing on getting the sales job done. So as soon as Tom found this out, he immediately kind of came in, his brother lubricated the door, did whatever they need to the door to take the squeak away. Ultimately, they changed the office up. And what happens is that the sales team's numbers improve. There are disruptors in your workplace, and just kind of investing in your employees can be as simple as trying to remove some of the disruptors out of the workplace. Think about open plan offices And you think about some of the disruptions that are going on there. Is there a way of adjusting the office to give employees who need to stay focused some kind of better focus area, or the ability to have meeting rooms where you can close doors, or whatever those things are? It's as simple sometimes as a door opening and closing. Addressing those small overlooked disruptors could double the amount of time that your employees spend thinking about your business. And I think the key action steps from the people, core values play a huge role. Take the time to think about your core values, revisit your core values. These are really important. They came up in just about every single discussion that had with successful business owners. Is your core values are the guidelines for how decisions are made in the business. So go back, revisit those core values, bring them to life in your business, and ensure that you're hiring and firing against those core values. So part of choosing the right people and getting the right people into your business, make sure you've got your core values right. And then when you're going through the hiring process, you're looking at how the people that you're hiring match with your core values. And you can use systems like top grading or read books like Foolproof Hiring to help you, and I'll put those into the notes, to help you navigate this process. If you need some help with core values, we've got a short course on putting together your core values. I'll put that into the notes as well. Do an audit of the workplace distractions that you've got, just like what's keeping your employees from doing their best work. Have a think about that. Their background noises, squeaky doors, simple things that you can just kind of, have they got the best tools, the right laptops, access to the software that they need? Have they got what they need to do to get the job done, that they're not spending their time thinking about how to get the job done all the time? And then maybe just think about one way to improve employee autonomy or engagement this quarter. Just one thing that you can do to improve employee engagement this quarter. The second thing is the power of focus. So this came up in so many different conversations, both on the podcast and outside the podcast. Focus, focus, focus. I spoke to Shannon Cisco in episode 23. She's founder of Metronomics, but she also scaled 2 businesses in the space of 6 years and exited those businesses for life-changing amounts of money. You know, one of the things that Shannon drummed on about on the show was focus, focus, focus. She drove home the importance of staying focused. And we entrepreneurs have this tendency to pursue shiny object syndrome, and go after the latest trend in marketing, or try and keep up with the competition, or just kind of being all over the place where we see an opportunity to make more revenue, an opportunity to do a new piece of business, an opportunity to start a new business. So there's all these shiny objects all the time that kind of grab our attention. And because many of us entrepreneurs are visionaries and we have this big picture thinking, we do latch on to some of these shiny objects. So this year, dial in your focus, get laser focused on what it is you're trying to achieve. You know, when going back to last week, we talked about aligning with your priorities with your overall big vision. So important that you stay focused on what you're trying to achieve. And that means saying no. The biggest thing is being able to say no to those opportunities that come along. We had the opportunity to spend some time with Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who wrote the book 10 Times is Easier Than 2 Times this year, co-authored with Dan Sullivan. And he's about to release a book called Rapid Transformation. And Dr. Hardy talked about this idea that it's easier to 10 times your business than it is to 2 times your business. And the key thing here is that when you're trying to 2 times the business, there's a whole lot of different ways to get there. So you've got maybe 100 different ways that you could 2 times your business, maybe 200, 500, whatever it is. But to get to 10 times your business, there's maybe a handful of ways, maybe 2 or 3 ways. And to me, this almost ties back to the 2 or 3 priorities that you should have. What are the 2 or 3 things I've absolutely got to get done to get to wherever I'm going? So what Dr. Hardy suggests is that we kind of think of it this way. Think of raising the floor. So if you imagine you've got these 100 possible things you could do to 2 times your business. If you think about 10 times in your business, what are the 2 or 3 things you've got to do? So you're kind of raising that floor up. And as you raise that floor up, everything that's below the floor you're saying no to, and the 2 or 3 things that are above, are the things that you're saying yes to. So as you're putting together your strategy for this year, think about the 2 to 3 things that are going to have the biggest impact on your business, the things that you absolutely need to focus on getting done, and get into the habit of saying no to everything else. So action steps here. Identify your 3 to 5 top priorities for 2025. Share them with your team, work on them with your team, figure them out with your team. Make sure they all line up with the purpose of your business, your long-term goal. I'm going to talk about long-term goals or long-term thinking in the next on the next point. Look at your current initiatives. Look at what you're working on at the moment and eliminate anything that doesn't directly support those long-term priorities. So if you're trying to double the revenue of your business for the year, what are the 2 or 3 things that are going to get you there? What are the top priorities that you've got to work on this year to get you to where you need to go? What are the things you've got to work on this quarter, and how they line up with those top priorities? And then you're saying no to everything else that comes along the way. Think 3 years out. It's really important. There's so many businesses. I spoke to Art Saxby about this in episode 28. There's so many businesses that are really good at what they do internally. They've got their systems and processes really well dialed in internally, but they are very bad at looking at what's going on in the market around them, at the market dynamics. And there are, for example, in the SaaS world, some significant changes on the horizon over the next 2 or 3 years, where the other day I heard the CEO of Microsoft talking about the end of SaaS as we know it, and how we're going to be looking at creating agents who pull the information from different data sources. So if I walked in and asked an agent, which project should I invest in, it would be able to take a look at all the data and come back to me and say, this is where you should be investing, and this is the team that you perhaps need to put together, and can I build out a project plan for you? So there are these dramatic changes going on outside of how your business operates. And it's really important that you take the time to look a couple of years down the line, and that you build a plan that looks 2 to 3 years down the line, and that you know where you want to be 2 to 3 years down the line. It's easy to look a few years out. It's very difficult to look 10 years out, but to look out the next few years, see what the challenges are that are coming down the line, the opportunities, the threats, the typical SWOT analysis, and then make sure that your focus and your priorities are all lined up, and that you're working toward where you want to be in the next 3 years, and that you're not kind of pursuing shiny objects all over the place. So really think about getting focused. If you need some help with this, we run three hack boot camps where we help you to knock out your 3-year highly achievable goal and put a system in place to help you keep the rhythm on the execution, because a lot of us put together the strategy, it lies on the shelf, and we're not actually getting the work done. So if you need some help with that, take a look at the notes. There's a link to the boot camps that we run, and what we're going to help you do there is to keep focused on it through things like an execution rhythm, making sure that you're in your huddles, your weekly meetings, your monthly meetings, your quarterlies, your annuals. And if you think about it, when you do this work, if you're taking 1 day out of the next 90 days for or 2 days for annual planning, and 1 day for your quarterly planning, and then your meetings, 1 day out of 90, and perhaps if you total up all the other days as another day a month, you're talking about 2 days out of 88 working on your business. There's so much talk about working on your business, but very few people want to put in the work of working on the business. Everything else is more important. So I want to stress this. Spend the time working on your business this year. Actually step back and invest the time in working on your business. Is going to help you massively. And then the final big theme is long-term thinking. And in episode 30, I talked to Rob Dubé about, he's the author of Shine, along with Gino Wickman, and how looking inward is the key to unlocking entrepreneurial freedom. He talks about 10 disciplines that are designed to help driven entrepreneurs maximize their energy, their impact, and inner peace. And Rob talks, one of the big things, I'm trying to put a lot of what he spoke about into practice myself, and it takes time, but one of the big things that he talked about was this idea of 10-year thinking. And what I really, where he really hooked me and what I really enjoyed hearing was that it slows down time. So when you start thinking about things in 10-year frames, you can effectively slow time, you can reduce stress, and it creates more intentionality. Like, where do you want to be in the next 10 years? You don't have, it's not something that's urgent and you have to be there right now and you're kind of chasing. It's something that is where you want to be 10 years from now. And as businesses, we go through cycles. We have 2 great years. We have maybe 6 good years, 2 terrible years. So those first 2 great years are periods of really exceptional growth and performance and profitability. You have 6 good years where everything's stable and pretty satisfactory. And then you have these 2 terrible years where there's challenging times and you could potentially go out of business. But it goes round in this 10-year cycle. And if you're thinking that way, and you're thinking about where you want to be 10 years from now, and you've got that kind of big, hairy, audacious goal thinking going on, and you're bringing that down to where you want to be in the next 3 years, and where you want to be in the next year, and where you want to be in the next quarter, it effectively slows down time. And it gives you the ability to focus on the key things that are going to take you from where you are right now to where you want to go. So I want to encourage you to start thinking in bigger timeframes. I know it's difficult, and I hear it so often like, but John, we can't think about the next 3 months, let alone the next 3 years. When you think about the next 10 years, when you think about things in terms of the next 3 years, you effectively are slowing down time, you're reducing stress, and you're giving yourself the ability to really be intentional about what you're creating or what you're doing. All right, so action steps for this. Block out some time to write down and refine your 10-year vision. Just think about where you want to be in the next 10 years, where you want your business to be. Get more intentional about that. It's really important that you think about what success looks like in both your life and your business 10 years from now. And then you can start thinking about where you want to be in the next 3 years, where you want to be in the next year, and get everything lined up. Really important that you're more intentional about that. Identify how this vision informs what your goals are for 2025, for this year, and how all your priorities are going to line up accordingly. You know, going back to that focus, that saying no. Where do you want to be 10 years from now? Where do you want to be at the end of this year? Where do you want to be at the end of this quarter? What are you saying no to? And then share that vision with your team and create alignment and buy-in around it. Next week, we'll be releasing a tool that you can use, which is a 1-page personal plan, and there'll be a short training with that. So that link will be on the website soon, and encourage you to just kind of go through that and put your 1-page personal plan together. So people, focus, and 10-year thinking. These ideas may sound kind of simple or a bit sort of fluffy, but getting the right people, having that high-performing team is critical. Making sure that everybody's focused on what needs to be done and the priorities is key. And having this 10-year thinking and everything lined up is key. Those are the things that are going to help you to build a successful business this year and beyond, and to gain momentum, create that momentum and that clarity in your business that you've been looking for. So as you reflect on today's episode, think about how you could start applying some of these principles in your business. And if you valued today's conversation, I'd be really grateful if you subscribe to this podcast, leave a review on the platform, whatever platform you're listening on. This is one of my top priorities for this year. It ties into our overall core purpose of creating entrepreneurial freedom. So this podcast lines up with the reason that my business exists, and I'd love to get your feedback. It helps us to improve the podcast. It helps us to giving a review, helps us to put this podcast in front of more entrepreneurs who could benefit from the insights. As always, thanks very much for tuning in. Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's edition of The Freedom Experience. And it's been a pleasure bringing this content to you. If you find value in today's show, I'd truly appreciate it if you could take just a moment to leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. Your feedback helps others to find the show, and it supports our mission to help business owners like you. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode filled with strategies and insights that'll help you scale your business with purpose. And for more information on anything we discussed, or if you're ready to start accelerating your business growth with ease, with speed, and with confidence, check out the link in the show notes below. There you'll learn more about our coaching and our mastermind programs. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you next time on The Freedom Experience.